Well, pleasure to meet you. Who the heck are you?
I'm Robert. I live here in Hilversum in the Netherlands. My wife and I and my two daughters, age 4 and 6, moved here just about a year ago from Ireland, and we had gone there from California 10 years ago. Ireland's lovely, but we wanted to be somewhere that our kids can ride bikes to school, that they can walk to their friend's house, and it was really interesting that, a lot of Americans will think of Europe as this monoblock, so to speak, where everything is just walkable, but it's hit or miss even here. And in Ireland, certainly there's a lot of car-dependent neighborhoods. So we came here, and it's been really good. Nowhere's perfect, but our kids can walk to their friend's house, they ride bikes to school, and I and my wife both live car-free and ride our bikes, or take the train, of course, everywhere we need to go. And it's been really good.
And speaking of the train, we are here at the Hilversum. It's Hilversum?
Hilversum, that's right.
Hilversum,
yes.
Central Station. I don't think that this is the central port orientation to the Centrum. That's the other side,
That's
right?
the other direction,
yes.
yes.
So we're on the back side here, and you can see some of the bike parking here. You had your Urban Arrow parked over there to meet me here. Mm-hmm. And we've never met before, but you have been following the channel.
That's right,
And we have mutual friends. So you're going to show me around a little bit. We don't have a lot of time, but let's take this opportunity to show me around this city and why you were so interested in showing me this city.
Absolutely.
All right, let's do it.
Yeah, let's go.
Cool.
So do you want to go towards the main downtown area?
Sure, whatever
That's
you want to
this
show
way.
me.
It's not far.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and get going here.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Active Towns channel. My name is John Simmerman. Hey, thank you so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. We are going to be doing a quick little tour of Hilversum, led by Robert Lawson, a local resident here. And if you're enjoying this content here on the Active Towns channel, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button down below and be sure to turn on all notifications and alerts. Okay, let's get right to it with Robert.
Okay. I'll keep the boost dial down.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Actually, let's go ahead and go this way. Okay. So, Hilversum is not really on the tourist trail unless you're interested in media history. There's no canals, no particular landmarks, but it's a pretty standard city. It's very much a commuter town for Amsterdam and Utrecht. Amsterdam is a 20-minute non-stop train. Utrecht is 17 minutes. Okay. This is the shopping area. You can see it's a bike zone, and actually, they've only recently changed this to be part-time bike and walking zone. Okay. It's almost always no cars except for loading. And you can hear my chain rattling there. And this is taking us through just shops and whatnot. And we'll go ahead and cruise through here. It's interesting though, because the more picturesque areas, they're just walking right now because it's a weekend afternoon, right. Which makes sense, of course. These bikes add up too. It's going to go right here. The features bond was crucial in getting bikes allowed in here outside of peak hours, though, which is nice.
Peak hours, okay.
Because it's also a thoroughfare just for commuting and getting from point A to point B.
Right.
And in fact, there's a sign to that very effect right there. Op je fiets rijden mag nu buiten winkeltijden.
So you're working on your Dutch.
I'm working on it. I'm really bad at the pronunciation, but getting there. Let's go ahead and go right here.
Fantastic.
And so, restaurants, shops, things, but just it's a not touristy town, which is nice for day-to-day life. And we've actually gotten to know people really well here too, and made friends more quickly than we expected as well. The area is famous for having not famous, but it's considered to have a lot of, some people say expats, you might also say immigrants, but there's a lot of American corporations here. Nike has their headquarters here. Okay. So just day-to-day life, even if it's not a postcard kind of a city. One thing you will see a lot of here, and I haven't seen much of it, I'm not sure what you've seen elsewhere in the Netherlands, because it varies. It's actually illegal to park with two wheels on the sidewalk, but it is very common here. Interesting. In Hilversum, I don't know if Kylie told you about this, but Hilversum this area is called the Hooi. There was a show called Gooise Vrouwen. It's considered to be the relatively wealthy area. If you want to have your big house and your big SUV in the Netherlands, this is where you come to do it. Okay. Especially the areas around here, like, Naarden, for instance, would be very, it's pretty nice. Boosum. So with that comes, I think, a more relaxed approach to parking enforcement, which can be frustrating as somebody who doesn't have a car. Yeah. And so it's a reminder that it's not all Utrecht and Houten, so to speak. Right. But again, we can go straight here, actually. It's interesting because, of course, if you're here for infrastructure, it's just a really nice pedestrianized area there, but we really can't ride through there.
The decision to come here, of all places in the Netherlands, you said you were kind of looking at opportunities. Did this like pop up on some radar screen for you of the right mix of everything you needed?
The housing crisis, it is the right mix. It's one of those things where unless you've got millions of euros sitting around, there's always a compromise. Yeah. This is centrally located. It has the reasonable infrastructure, but here's a good example of where it could be better.
Yeah.
You'll notice we're in town and then it just dumps you onto the street. So, it's a painted bike lane, bike gutter, you could say. Yeah. It's pretty busy. The lanes are really not that wide. So this is an example of where it's okay. Right. But also, to be honest, there were places available, which is a big part of it, is that it's just really hard to find a place to rent right now, and we were very lucky to find a place. Okay. Funny enough, our landlords actually just moved to the US, so we almost switched places there. But it just worked out that way. Yeah. But centrality is a big part of it, and unlike Amsterdam, for instance, there are spots, or were spots, in the Taalschool. The Taalschool is the incoming school, so if you have kids, little kids, or even big kids for that matter, they will go to a language school for 1 year first. Right. And those spots can be hard to get. There's a lot of new people, and it's hard to recruit teachers, especially since COVID, I understand. Right. And so we were able to get spots in the language schools, the Taalschool, and our kids have been here for, my 4-year-old and 6-year-old are already speaking much better Dutch than me. Yeah. And they're going to the regular Dutch school in September. Okay. So quite soon. Wow. But this is what you see, what I was referring to, where it's not bad, but when it gets narrow, they'll just take the lane away from the bikes. Right. And the council here is somewhat more conservative. Right. And they're very much, reasonably, again, a dream by American standards. They're supportive, right, but they're not real big on taking space away from cars. At best, actually, if I'm gonna go ahead and toss my chain in my bag so it's not so loud. This is like another little nice part of the town. But yeah, it's just a classic Dutch neighborhood. I don't know if I call it classic. It's basically a neighborhood where people live, and it's not full of tourists, but it's nice. But it is something where I don't know if I'd quite let a 6-year-old ride a bike around on a daily basis. Yeah. There's a lot of cars parked on the footpaths. A surprising number of Dodge Rams, funny enough. Interesting. Not like America, but you certainly see plenty of those around. They're very large here. Yeah. So, and we are seeing, some parents riding with their kids. We've got one in the cycle path right now. We just had a young boy about that same age ride by a second ago. Right. But we do see a steady stream of cars coming through. And so, that's one of the things that I wanted to see about this and hear from you is that there was kind of that trade-off of you can't necessarily afford the best of the best, but at the same time, this is pretty good. It is. And there's a little bit of compromise going on in terms of, finding a balance between a working network, a network where all ages and abilities, you've got somebody in a mobility scooter rolling by there, but you're still navigating a little bit with cars. Right, and my 6-year-old actually bikes to school every day with me, with her, and it's usually fine, but sometimes we'll get, frankly, a van driver who's a little bit late or somebody who's not in a good mood, and they can make it pretty unpleasant, so it's a challenge. But on the other hand, I spoke with somebody who lives in Houten, and she was telling me that sometimes it's an issue that Houten is so nice that you get a little bit complacent and you forget you've got to be on your toes, and so starting from 6, you got to learn to keep an eye out for things from every direction, and you never know what the driver's going to do. So they're still human, even here. So. Before we start rolling again, let's go back to your experience in Ireland and feeling like it wasn't something that you could just stick with there and try to fight with, for safer places. You're like, okay, we have the ability, we have that privilege of being able to move somewhere. Right. Let's try to find someplace nicer. Right, and it's a shame because I think Ireland certainly deserves better, and there's a lot of people doing great work there. iBike Dublin comes to mind, and Irish Cycle, and they run study tours to here to convince Irish politicians of how things can be. Yeah. But I think it's unfortunate consequence of several decades of urban design decisions that led to urban development, where everyone is built in a long line along a single road, sprawling suburbs without adequate infrastructure. And so even if you want to improve the infrastructure, it's really hard to do it now that that's baked in. And if you go to Ireland, and in some suburbs will feel not so different from, I remember being at a shopping center called City West, and it was reminiscent of Orange County in California. It was really a strange feeling. Big car parks, really mediocre infrastructure in terms of cycling. And it was disheartening because it could be better, and it should be. And they are improving, but slow.
I was just going to say, yeah, and I believe that they are one of the fastest movers in terms of funding in the EU.
Yes.
Ireland is, because they have had just an extraordinary amount of funding set aside for it. They have to implement it now.
Right.
In terms of actually building out the networks.
They do, and there has been a lot of improvement, and they got, the big tagline was €1 million per day, almost 300 million per year, and that was one of the Green Party's big pushes there, and they were in coalition with 2 other major parties. But as everything, there's a lot of red tape, there's a lot of bureaucracy, locals will sometimes be pretty upset about it.
It's hard to change the status quo.
It is.
And we
this
saw
took
that
decades.
just, in the fact that, as you mentioned, when things got narrow, it was the bike lane that was taken away.
It is, yeah, and to be fair, again, could be a lot worse, but you really notice it, that there are places that even here I really don't like biking with my 6-year-old. I'm taking her to swim lessons later, and she's going in the Bachfiets because I don't really like her biking on that stretch of road where it is just a dashed dashed white line and nothing else to stop it.
Yeah, okay, well, let's get to that next location.
So we're just going to go to a neighborhood in southwestern Hilversum that's a pretty nice area, a nice bakery I'm a big fan of, and I think where people like to go on a Saturday morning and linger and have a coffee.
Let's do it.
All right. Here you get to see a beautiful petrol station.
Always.
Slowest fat bike I've ever seen, just about. Those are a point of some contention here, actually. The fat bikes are popular, but they're really fast.
And the irony of all of that was that she was beeping at us because she wants to pass because she's going fast, and I thought it was a motor scooter.
No, those are.
But it's not. It's an electric bike, and they do go fast.
Yeah. No, they're quick.
And it is kind of funny too, because interesting, strange, but the girls have really been attracted to that, the young girls.
The fat bikes are really popular with kids in general. I mean, they're effectively a motorbike, really. They're really fast. Yeah. We need to turn, actually. Okay. Sorry, I haven't been paying attention to where I'm going.
All right.
And it shows. This is actually the wrong direction to be going here. Sorry, I don't know how to tell you this. I took you downhill and I should have taken you the other way. Really sorry. That was also technically not allowed. So I'm really sorry. I should pay attention to where I'm going better. Yeah, right. No, I put together one video and I was like, man, these things take forever.
Yeah.
That was all about rural Irish cycling.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually an interesting, not going on a tangent, I think there's a lot that can be done in rural areas, in Ireland especially.
Oh, sure.
Because they have such lightly trafficked roads, in some cases gravel roads.
Yeah.
They're sometimes called racha roads. Racha is Irish for bike.
Yeah.
But a lot of it is just about to have these really nice paths that the locals will know, but they're not necessarily connected up. But I think there's a lot of potential there too.
Yeah, I think the same thing about, I think about the rural areas in North America, even in California.
Right, yeah.
I mean, just amazing opportunity for putting in cycle paths that connect villages.
Right.
I mean, oftentimes they're not as far as you think they are. So.
Well, the locals will know, and I grew up in I grew up in Lodi in California. And yeah, so there's farm roads there that are actually quite wide shoulder.
Yeah.
Would not be that hard to actually build nice infrastructure, and you could get a great connector between, for instance, Davis and Sacramento.
Sure, yeah.
Or between really the whole Bay Area and the Sacramento region comes to mind as an area that could easily have a nice, safe, well-segregated bike route on existing shoulders.
Yes.
And California also is making improvements, and so I hope they get there.
Yeah.
Because, it would be really nice to see. So
you grew up in Lodi, huh?
Well, a mix of Lodi and Sacramento. I bounced around a little bit, but the Central Valley of California. Okay. I went to school at Cal Poly, actually, of City Beautiful fame.
Okay,
But I was there in the early 2000s, well before they had made a lot of the current changes.
Yeah.
And it's really great to see what's happening in San Luis Obispo.
Yeah. Have you been back there recently?
Not recently, although a friend of mine just got a house there.
Okay.
Not cheap, I'm afraid. It's an expensive city.
It is an expensive city.
But it is lovely. So I'm hoping to go visit him in the next 6 months or so, but we'll see.
Nice.
And here we lose our bike lane again.
Yep. Yeah, so I grew up in Lincoln, California.
Oh, that's
little farm town.
Davis, or I'm mixing things up.
It's
Sorry.
just you know where Loomis is?
Yes.
And Auburn.
Yeah, let's go. Okay,
Right
yeah.
there. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
That's
okay.
where I was. Yeah. Pretty funny.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let this car get by us.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny they didn't decide to make this a feet strut.
No, it is. That's the thing.
Yeah.
So they didn't make this a feet straw, and there are other feet straws where they did, but it feels like it was sort of half-hearted. They painted it red, but there's still plenty of cars, and they still sort of expect you to move out of the way. And this is all by Dutch standards. They've already gotten very spoiled.
Right.
I went back to California for a week, and I was biking around the Bay, and it was, you know, a lot rougher. Suffice it to say.
Suffice it to
say. Yeah. But still, when I talk to the features bond here, for instance, they're pretty adamant that we shouldn't grade things on a curve, right? Be the best you can be everywhere.
Yeah.
So we're going to go right up here.
Okay.
They do at least tend to be good about protecting the intersections, which are crucial. Right. So we're going to turn right.
Okay, I'll let you go.
Oh, okay, thanks. We've got a red here, though.
Yeah, you do just get that feel like there really is that sort of sensibility, except for, like we said earlier, in the zones that they have considered to be more pedestrian only.
Right.
That things are going, they're really prioritizing cars to a large extent.
I would say by Dutch standards, yes.
Yeah.
It's, again, I think a lot of it is, there's a lot of wealthy people with their SUVs and they want to get around.
Yeah.
And so that is one thing that comes up here a lot, is I think this is, if you want to buy a detached house, if you've got the money, this is a neighborhood you do it. It has a lovely nature preserve. It's a beautiful area, actually. But it is certainly, they call it Hillywood, for instance, in part because of the media industry. So the nod to Hollywood is there, and that includes the car culture to an extent.
Yeah.
I don't know what we'll see today, but funny enough, I see a lot of classic cars around here too.
Yeah.
So that actually comes up where you see a lot of classic cars that people work on, and it's weird things. It'll be like an old Ford Falcon or like an Oldsmobile from the 80s. We're not talking about classic Mustangs here. Rechtsaf voor fietsers vrij, so we can go right here. And that's something that if you follow the local residents groups, they've been up in arms about the fact that the city recently introduced paid parking on July 1st, so very recently in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
And a lot of these people were just storing these old cars. Some of them I do have a fondness for. Like there's someone with 2 Volkswagen Golfs just sitting on the street.
Yeah.
But I think when they have to pay for them, and you can't just have 5 cars sitting on the street, that's going to be a change.
Yeah.
And this is an area where you can see there was a footpath, and they've added a bike lane, and that's good, but it's pretty narrow. And when in doubt, you'll notice that the drivers will always park onto the bike lane and not onto the road.
Yeah. We've got a relatively narrow streetscape here. The right-of-way is not a particularly wide streetscape. And as you mentioned, yes, they were able to find a way to get the bike lane in, but obviously, you only have one lane of traffic going in this direction. And then we have, the separated and protected bike lanes. They're actually quite narrow.
They are.
With your ride here, the urban arrow, there's just enough space for somebody to squeeze by. Not super comfortable riding side by side and having a conversation when you're on a wider load and a person's on the other. Mainly because you're kind of on lips in different areas. Back there was literally like a curb, and I'm like, if I wiggle a little bit, I'm off and into the road with the traffic.
Right.
But yeah, to your point that you were making earlier, is because they're continuing to try to accommodate street parking, and the widths are so narrow, we're getting a lot of that, spillover effect, and pretty much every single one of these motor vehicles is spilling over into the quote-unquote bike territory.
Right, and this actually illustrates one of the issues is that a lot of this would have been done decades ago when cars were narrower. And so I've gone out and I've measured, in some cases, like you can see right here, that'll be 1.3, 1.4 meters wide. A narrow car anymore is 1.8 meters. And a lot of people are driving cars that are 2.2, 2.3 or 4, I think for a Dodge Ram, for instance.
Sure.
And they just don't fit.
Yeah.
And so what happens is that people say, well, this is a legal parking spot, I'm going to park here, but they actually are encroaching on either the bike lane or on the street, and almost always they'll go into the bike lane.
Yeah.
So I think this is something where they built it with narrower cars, in the 80s or 90s here, and the cars have just gotten too big for the parking spots.
Yeah.
And so that usually means that the bike lane is left taking up slack.
Yeah. The other thing that I wanted to really emphasize is that sometimes we get, especially as bicycle advocates, active transportation advocates, we get really kind of wrapped around the axle of trying to create separated space and squeezing it in narrow places.
Right.
And that's kind of what's happening here. Is we're pushing to try to have the separated space, and I get that. But if we didn't have any motor vehicles in here, it would be a lot more comfortable.
Right.
If we are going to have motor vehicles in here, again, kind of like what we had talked about earlier, is maybe leaning towards a really high quality red brick treatment for the entire space, and maybe still having a little gray, maybe a little more significant pedestrian realm. Because right now what we're seeing is the pedestrian realm is compromised from bikes parking and stuff, detritus that's in there.
Right.
The cars, are encroaching here, and clearly from a mobility device perspective, somebody in a wheelchair is going to be on the cycle path, which is what we would expect. But at the same time, the cycle path is again done in these pavers, and they're constantly being very, very difficult to roll over.
Yes.
So getting that upgrade to the red, smooth asphalt will be something for the future if they keep this orientation going.
Right, the tree roots in particular are an issue. I've spoken to, again, the Fietsbond and also to people at the Gemeente too, and what often comes up is whether the street is designated as being, I forget the exact term, but if it's a crucial through street or if it's just for neighborhood access. And I'm looking at a map right now, and I don't think you'd really call this a through street. But that is often what they will what they will say is the reason for not making it a shared space. That being said, you'll notice it's a reasonable traffic volume here.
Yeah.
So if it stayed the same, it would be not a place I would let a 6-year-old ride a bike.
Yeah.
It's okay as is, but it's really one of those things where can they actually have the traffic evaporate, if you will, or reroute it to an orbital road like a Houghton approach, which would be nice because a lot of these people will likely not be going just these 300 meters, but really just going from one side of the town to the other, even though there are actually better streets for that.
Yeah. Do you get a sense, having lived here for almost a year at this point, where a lot of these vehicles tend to be parked and stay, and then they tend to be able to get around by walking, biking, and taking transit?
That depends a lot on the neighborhood. And what's interesting is that if you look not far from here, there's a lot of, it's a really nice street. Near downtown, there's a lot of row houses where you would think there was nowhere to park, and there's almost nowhere on the street. But then if you know the area, there will be a little spot where it's just between two houses, a little alley, and then there's a car park for about 30 or 35 cars behind it. And so you'll see this on satellite view, and so that comes up a lot too. And this is part of the thing where the city will say, well, we need to build more parking. Others will say we have a housing crisis, we need to build more housing. And even here, that comes up as an issue. So a lot of people do feel a sense of wanting to park in front of their house. And this is interesting in that it's come up with electric vehicles. If somebody charges the car on the street, we've now seen the city start adding these channels in the footpath so that you can run a cable and not trip somebody. But now you've effectively said that the spot in front of the house is theirs because they need to charge their EVs, so why would you park there? Never mind put in a bike lane. So that comes up too in terms of that sense of ownership of the public realm.
Cool. Okay, thanks for that little stop. I wanted to just kind of highlight this as a good learning experience, as well. So
yeah, of course.
Good deal. All right.
So yeah, we can cruise here. I'll do a little loop and then back where we started, I suppose.
Nice.
There is one area I could show you that's more of like not a highway exactly, but like a very busy road. That actually, that might be interesting because my 4-year-old walks over it with her class. Okay. So yeah, this is, again, it's. I would love this in LA. Right. But they can do better. I think. But that car fits fine. It's nice and narrow. Is that a bonjour? I'm not sure. But yeah, even a Mini Cooper really doesn't fit there.
Yeah.
I was speaking with the president of the Fietsersbond about the parking. And she feels, or I don't want to put words in her mouth, but she reminded me of the Dutch concept where you can have a law but then choose to somewhat ignore it.
Right.
And this comes up with cannabis, actually.
Yeah.
It's not really legalized per se.
Right.
It's just tolerated.
Right.
And there's a feeling that the parking may be similar, at least in certain areas.
Yeah.
We're going to go right up here.
Okay.
This is actually pretty quiet as it's a rainy Sunday afternoon right now.
Yeah.
But this is a nice spot to come on a or Saturday morning. Actually, there's a really nice bakery that has great baguettes and other French style stuff, actually. So yeah, it's funny. Yesterday this would have been really, really full of cars, but now it's almost dead.
Yeah.
So I hope I haven't led you astray. It's not that exciting, but you know. On the other hand, you'll notice they're looking for us. You can see that driver was looking over their shoulder.
Yeah.
So I will say the drivers are trained well, so to speak. Right. And the cyclists. The kids all get a cycling safety diploma.
Right.
And it's a big deal.
Yeah.
In school.
What ages are they when they start doing that in school?
I think that's when they're 7 or 8. It's going to be my kid hasn't done it yet and she's 6. Yeah. But I think it's 7 or 8 they do that. And it's a whole week-long program and they simulate a traffic environment. If you go to the Miffy Museum, you'll see a simulated traffic environment as well.
Yeah, and you definitely get the sense that this is a very comfortable environment. You've got a pretty decently wide cycle path here, a decently wide pedestrian realm, so much so that a few of the places have outdoor cafe seating.
Yes.
And then two-way traffic that's moving very, very slowly.
Right.
We've got a little protected intersection here.
Right.
I mean, they're doing an awful lot in small real estate spaces.
They are. And this is another, we haven't been on this yet, but this would be another street treatment that is fairly common.
Yeah, so this is your standard edge lane road treatment. You mostly will see these out in rural environments.
Yes.
And it's debatable. There are a lot of people saying whether, trying to figure out whether it's appropriate in an urban environment. But really, it's the whole point of it is low volume, low speed,
yes,
and motor vehicles traveling in both directions, and they have to have yielding behavior to each other, as well as priority yielding to people and bikes on the edges. Now, how comfortable is it for you and with the kids?
So on a street like this, I would be, so it is currently a Sunday afternoon, it's very quiet. There are some streets like this in town, which are okay, but not everybody cares about the lines.
Yeah.
And I think it really shows because there are people who will just drive on like it's any other street.
Yeah.
And because it's narrow, they'll kind of shove you out of the way.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where 95% of the drivers can be doing great.
Yeah.
But it only takes a few to mess it up for everybody else.
Yeah. And just like, right on cue, we get an aggressive motor scooter rider.
Yes, that too.
So we still have that problem in the Netherlands.
Right here, actually.
Okay.
We don't have to go right, but we can.
We still have that problem in the Netherlands, is the aggressive motor scooter riders.
You get a lot
and
of
that's
that.
been something that's been a constant battle over the past couple of decades.
Yeah.
So.
And when I lived in San Diego, I rode a Vespa, and I appreciate the value of you're a vulnerable road user then as well.
As well, yeah.
But it is tough because you're also fast.
Yeah.
So what do you do about that?
Yeah.
This is an interesting one in that it's one is painted, but it's only for the opposite direction. It's a counterflow bike lane.
Yes.
But at least here it's a quiet local street, so it works a lot better here.
And again, this is kind of an interesting situation where in one of those other environments, including Amsterdam, including Utrecht, they would have also more than likely gone in and, and I see that it's there. Okay, so this asphalt had been painted. Yes.
Yes.
And that's what I was gonna say, is that they would have more than likely just paved this in red bricks.
Right.
To slow the motor vehicles down, because since it is shared space for us with motor vehicles, that paving of the bricks, just like we see here on this ETW, that is a local access road for residents.
Right.
It sends the message to the drivers that they need to slow down and they are not the priority.
It does.
Yeah.
And I think for most drivers that works well.
Yeah.
We can go ahead and go left here, I suppose. But you do get, there was, I don't remember the source, but it was an interview, somebody talking about how great it is that when you're driving a 2,000 kilo Dodge Ram with a great suspension, you hardly even feel it.
Yes.
And so it doesn't work for everybody, and that's a challenge, because on a bike, actually, you will feel it unless you've got a good suspension.
Yeah.
I did not spring for the suspension.
Yeah.
This is already enough.
Yeah.
And, especially when you have the constant speed bumps or the raised platforms, actually, my kids would go bouncing out of the seat if I'm not going pretty slowly.
Yeah.
And as you can see here, it's okay, but it's pretty narrow.
Yeah.
And these curves are just enough to dump you into the under the ground if you're not careful about them.
Yeah.
You can go and go right. Let's go ahead and head back towards the train station for you.
Yep. And they could have just as easily, paved that in truly red asphalt instead of putting red paint over the top of it.
Yeah.
And then it would have been smooth still for people on bikes, which is nice and helpful.
Right. And wheelchairs.
And wheelchairs. But again, it's one of those design things where we have to keep being consistent with the motor vehicle drivers and giving them cues so that they understand they're not prioritized.
That's a car that's not too wide.
Yeah.
Yeah, the classic 2CV there.
Yeah.
It's weird. At one point in time, I actually enjoyed wrenching on old cars for a split second, which is weird to say.
Yeah.
But it's like, someone's behind me. Let's go and let them by.
No. I did quite a few old classic cars.
Yeah.
I worked on a 1932 5-window coupe with a rumble seat.
Oh, fun.
That was a lot of fun.
Sounds like a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah.
We can go left.
Okay.
This is actually one of my less favorite intersections. It's mostly because they put you here.
Yeah.
And then you can get stuck on an island that your bike is too long to fit on.
Yeah.
So, the Brompton does better there, though.
Yeah.
I have to confess, one thing I'm realizing is I'm really bad at navigating while I'm talking.
Yeah.
We're doing okay, though.
Yeah.
This isn't the route I intended, but it's fine, too. This is actually one of my favorite spots. Like, in the areas where they have the space, it's nice. It really is.
Yeah, they've done a great job here. Going back to that roundabout that we just navigated through, we noticed that the shark teeth were giving the drivers priority. And again, that's just another reinforcement to faster, more aggressive driver behavior when you're always prioritizing them.
Yes.
It sort of reinforces that. Now here, they have the shark's teeth. We had the priority in that intersection, so that was a nice little treatment.
One frustration is it's not always consistent.
Exactly.
And on my daughter's bike ride to school, the shark's teeth give the driver's priority in one place and her priority elsewhere, and she knows the rules.
Yeah.
But she's only 6.
Exactly.
She shouldn't have to think about it that hard. And to be honest, where the drivers have priority, they will take it.
Yeah.
And a lot of kids will bunch up there.
Yeah.
Waiting to cross, and sometimes a kindly driver will let them through, which is nice.
Yeah.
But they shouldn't have to rely on that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's green again. Well, that was good. That was actually a nice touch.
Yeah. Except for we lost our momentum.
Sorry. Yeah. Oh well.
A nice idea, guys. But come on, anticipate a little better.
Yeah. We can go ahead and cross here. There's construction going. So if you're good, we can just about done with the ride, I think.
Yeah.
You got
Let's
a little
wrap it
taste.
up.
There's plenty more, but you got a taste of Hilversum there.
Yeah. No, that's perfect. I think it's as advertised, as you said. You know, it's a great example of, you know, a typical Dutch city that isn't Utrecht and isn't Amsterdam, and you've got your trade-offs. You've got, you know, situations where there's plenty of cars, but there's also some pretty decent active transportation, and for you and your family, you're able to find out how to really make it work.
Yes.
You know, being able to get the kids to and from school and other meaningful destinations.
Exactly, and as, to be honest, an able-bodied adult, I feel very safe here.
Yeah.
And they are improving. This is a brand new bike lane we're on right now.
Yeah.
Less than a year old, and it's fantastic.
Yeah.
And it is getting better bit by bit.
Yeah.
Every year.
Yeah.
So that's very nice to see.
Yeah.
This is weird because cars can drive on this.
Okay.
I don't know if you see anybody. They can drive into there to get to that car park behind us, the parking garage.
Oh yeah, interesting.
Yeah. If you don't expect it, it really catches you by surprise.
Yeah. But you see how they're using the different colored pavers. So there's definitely some intentionality and some thought going on with that, where they're like, okay, we're going to continue that gray in.
Yeah.
It sends that message that, you know, hey, this is kind of what's going to happen, folks.
If you know what to look for, I mean, I think it is a good example of, it's only 600 years old.
Yeah.
But it was something where they've done a lot for not having had the Utrecht level of, to be honest, like, we're going to make this the best cycling city in the world.
Right.
But they squeeze things in where they can, and and even where it's difficult, they usually will try to find some solution.
Yeah.
Which I really appreciate.
Yeah.
And this is the pedestrianized, and this is also, is it a bike lane? Is it a footpath? Is it a road?
Yeah.
Not really clear.
Which is kind of an interesting approach, because you immediately feel, from the driver's perspective, it seemed like they immediately kind of slowed down a bit. There was a lot of like confusion as to, okay, what exactly is this?
Right.
Hans Monderman, one of the greatest Dutch shared space minds of all time, used to say that if we're making the drivers feel confused and they're not sure what is going on, they will slow down.
And most do. And here is a weird stretch with no provision at all.
Yeah.
It's actually a very naked street.
Yeah, and that's exactly what he used to design, were naked streets. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then this is where the bike path just picks up, but you can see where they just ran out of room, so they just didn't do anything. And we actually just went past where I wanted to go, but I thought you might want to see that street.
Okay, cool.
It was the only one, the whole path, I think, that had no markings of any sort.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you're cool, we can turn around and just, if you're all right,
let's
have
wrap
a chat
around
and a quick drink or something like that. No pressure, of course.
Sounds like a plan to me.
Yeah, I think, it really is something where 99% of people are fine, but on this stretch in particular, I was here one time, and frankly, you're a young guy in a souped-up car or something like that, and then you see a 6-year-old, you're not so worried about it, which is unfortunate, because I'm the 6-year-old's dad,
Yeah.
So it's a concern.
Yeah.
But there's some kids in a fountain.
Yep, right over here.
That's fantastic to see.
My sense, too, is that you have found that there's lots of other parents, lots of other kids, lots of other families here.
Loads, absolutely.
Yeah.
This is classically the place you come.
Yeah.
If you've got your first kid and you can't really manage to fit in a one-bed apartment in Amsterdam anymore, you come here, because the train to Amsterdam is 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's really not a bad spot.
Yeah. Let me see.
So yeah, we can just park up here, wherever you like.
Sure. Hey, thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you for showing me around your new city.
It was my pleasure. I really enjoyed it, and I hope you did as well.
Yeah, fantastic. where can folks learn more about this community and what's going on? You mentioned the Fietsersbond, so is there an actual chapter here?
Well, the Fietsersbond does have a chapter here, and they're active, and they're always interested in working with people to make improvements. There's also the regional Fietsersbond for the Gooi in general, which is the overall region. And I might suggest you could look at active towns, of course, for other resources related to great livable places in general.
Fantastic, I appreciate that. And are you like searchable and findable out on social media? Or do you have a social media presence?
I am. So there's two things. One, you can find me at FuzzBiz. I actually kind of quit Twitter like everyone else, but I'm still an urbanist.social, the Mastodon instance. And I do have a tool for finding homes with great active transport near them in Ireland, funny enough, at gaffologist.com, which is an Irish slang. But that will help you find homes where you can actually take the train, take the bus, bike to work and school and your daily needs as well.
Fantastic. And we didn't talk about this. What do you do on your day work?
Oh, well, actually, I'm currently between jobs, you might say, but I do data analysis, and until recently, it was for a company that did sustainability criteria for consumer products. And I'm not sure what I'm doing next, but if it involves big data and making the planet better, I'd love to chat.
All right. Us urbanists, we could use you.
I'm doing my best.
All right, man. Hey, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
All right, cool. Bye.
And again, sending a huge thank you out to all my Active Towns ambassadors supporting the channel on Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee, YouTube Super Thanks, as well as making contributions to the nonprofit. Every little bit adds up and it's much appreciated. Thank you all so much.